In the northern lands of the cultivation world, there existed places whispered about with dread, regions where even the boldest cultivators hesitated to tread. These were the so-called life-restricted areas. Within such domains, death lingered like a silent predator. Even masters of the spiritual infant tier, figures who could shake mountains with a gesture, might enter these forbidden lands only to vanish forever. One such place was the infamous Dark Devil Forest, where demonic energy churned violently and twisted living beings into mindless zombies. Yet, far to the north stood another danger zone, far less famous but no less mysterious, the desolate Eaglewood Valley. Unlike other perilous realms rich with spiritual herbs or rare ores, Eaglewood Valley possessed none of the treasures cultivators typically sought. The valley was barren, filled with jagged stone spires that stabbed toward the sky like the fangs of a giant beast. Rumor had it that no spiritual herbs had ever grown there. Because of this, most cultivators dismissed the valley entirely. After all, who would willingly risk death where no reward awaited? Only fools would gamble their lives without profit. Yet on this day, three figures stood at the mouth of that forgotten valley. Ling Han and his companions halted at the edge of the barren land. Uh, from afar, the valley resembled a graveyard of stone. Countless rocky pillars jutted upward in crooked clusters, as if the earth itself had erupted with spikes. A dense purple fog blanketed the entire place, swirling endlessly and shifting like living smoke. The fog twisted into strange shapes, obscuring everything within. Even Ling Han, activating his eye of truth, could see only a short distance ahead. He frowned slightly and murmured to himself, "The Dark Devil Forest contained Chaos Source rocks. Then what exactly lies hidden here?" Turning his head, he glanced at Zhujuan. "Why would your master come to a place like this?" Zhujuan thought for a moment before answering slowly. "My master has always wandered the world, seeking out strange and dangerous places. She once said that the birth of every forbidden region must have a reason behind it. Sometimes, hidden within the most dangerous lands, there may be treasures capable of shaking the heavens." Ling Han couldn't help laughing softly. "So your master is secretly a treasure hunter?" Zhu rolled her eyes at him in annoyance. Even that small gesture carried a certain beauty that made Ling Han's heart stir unexpectedly. But she continued calmly. "Master also said that the purple fog here sometimes forms patterns resembling natural Dao phenomena. If that is true, there could be some extraordinary treasure hidden within the valley." Ling Han rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "So she ventured inside, and that's how she suffered her Dao injury?" Zhu sighed faintly. "More or less. For years, she had been struggling to heal her master's Dao injury. Without her master's protection, the once peaceful life she had known within the sect had crumbled. Many people now revealed their greed openly, coveting both her beauty and her talent. She had endured endless pressure and schemes, nearly collapsing beneath the weight of it all. Ling Han looked toward the fog-covered valley again. "Well then," he said calmly, "I suppose I should see this place for myself." With a flick of his wrist, he pulled out a small creature from his sleeve, the gold-seeking rat. "Fatty," Ling Han said, pointing toward the valley. "Go take a look inside and see if there's anything valuable." The little rat immediately scrambled back up his shoulders and squeaked frantically in protest. Its tiny paws waved wildly as if trying to explain that this place looked terrifying. It clearly had no intention of entering such a death trap. Ling Han shook his head helplessly. "When it's time to eat, you always rush forward first, but the moment I ask you to do something useful, you become full of excuses. I really raised you for nothing." The gold-seeking rat rolled its eyes indignantly. It was a gold-seeking rat, not some treasure-sniffing war beast. There was absolutely no way it would volunteer to explore a deadly valley. Seeing that the rat was utterly useless, Ling Han gave up on the idea. "Fine. We'll go in ourselves." With a thought, he brought Zhu into the Black Tower. Back then, even her master, a spiritual infant-tier expert, had suffered serious injury here. Zhu strength was far from sufficient to survive inside this place. Thus, only three figures entered the valley: Ling Han, who knew, and Rabbit. All three stepped cautiously into the purple fog. None of them dared relax their guard. At any moment, they could retreat into the Black Tower if danger struck. As they advanced deeper, Rabbit suddenly paused. "Yi!" it exclaimed, its ears twitching. Why does Lord Rabbit feel so light here? It's like I'm about to float away. Ling Han also sensed something unusual. The purple fog contained no spiritual qi, yet within it lingered a mysterious substance, unlike anything found in the outside world. He could not identify it, but he could clearly feel that whatever this substance was, its level seemed astonishingly high. It was like comparing ordinary metal to level 10 precious metal, an overwhelming difference in quality. Ling Han nodded thoughtfully. No wonder Schwanner's master came here. In the northern region, cultivation techniques above 7th tier simply did not exist. If Zhujuan Er's master wished to break into the deity transformation tier, she could only search for other opportunities. This valley might have been one of those desperate attempts. However, the deeper they went, the thicker the fog became. Visibility shrank drastically. They could see only about 6 meters ahead of them. Even their divine sense was suppressed to the same range. In such an environment, any ambush would arrive without warning. Just as this thought crossed Ling Han's mind, Hong, a massive purple fog suddenly condensed and transformed into a ferocious leopard that lunged toward them. Its speed was astonishing. The creature's aura was comparable to a heaven-tier expert. Ling Han snorted coldly. His hands moved swiftly, forming complex seals, earth-overturning seal. Golden patterns burst into brilliance across both palms. The light shone like stars scattered across the cosmos, briefly pushing back the surrounding fog. Though Ling Han had already mastered a one-handed version of the earth-overturning seal, he now used both hands, unarmed and without his sword, to unleash its greatest power. The purple leopard showed no fear. Its jaws opened wide. Though formed entirely from fog, its fangs appeared eerily white and its tongue blood-red, twisting in a grotesque mockery of life. Peng! The earth-overturning seal slammed into the creature. Golden light exploded outward. The purple leopard shattered instantly, dissolving back into drifting fog. Yet Ling Han's expression did not relax. Instead, his brows knit slightly. It possessed the battle power of a single star of the deity transformation tier, he said slowly, and it carried a trace of regulatory power. He lifted his hand. A shallow wound had appeared on his palm. It was small but shocking. His physical body now rivaled the toughness of level 9 precious metal. Even a heaven-tier cultivator would struggle to damage him unless many joined forces and refined him like a precious ore. Yet this fog-formed beast had pierced his defense, even if only slightly. The fact alone was astonishing. Ling Han's voice grew serious. No wonder Schwanner's master suffered a Dao injury. This place is truly extraordinary, no weaker than the dark devil forest. Rabbit immediately shivered. Then let's go back, it blurted out. There's meat outside and carrots to chew. Why stay here and suffer? Ling Han chuckled lightly. Not yet. I have teleportation talismans. Even if we're trapped, we can escape. Then his gaze grew distant. Our plans are vast. Mystery realms and dangerous lands like this may become unpredictable variables in the future. We must understand them one by one. At the very least, we must know what dangers lie hidden here. He thought of the abandoned mine in Fire Country. Within that cursed place slept nearly 100 living dead at the Shattering Void tier. If those monsters ever emerged, the consequences would be unimaginable. If the Purple Moon Empire could manipulate time liquid to endure millennia, and those undead miners had clawed their way back from death itself, then who could say how many other strange existences lurked across this world? With that thought, Ling Han continued forward. As they advanced deeper into Eaglewood Valley, the purple fog thickened further. Again and again, shapes emerged from the mist. Demonic beasts, wolves, serpents, leopards formed from condensed fog and launched sudden ambushes. Each carried the strength of the deity transformation tier. In this cramped environment where sight and divine sense were crippled, every encounter was dangerous, but Ling Han's strength was overwhelming. Each beast was crushed with ease. Still, their attacks left small wounds upon his hands. That strange regulatory energy embedded in the injuries resisted even the body of Diamond's recovery ability. Only by retreating briefly into the Black Tower could Ling Han expel the lingering energy and heal himself. After traveling for some time, a strange glow appeared ahead. The fog parted slightly, and before them flowed a river, but what rushed through its channel was not water. Instead, it was lightning. A blazing white river of lightning roared through the valley, like a dragon made of thunder. The thunderous valley before them looked like a river born from the wrath of heaven itself. Ling Han stood at the edge of the surging current, his gaze fixed upon the rolling tide of violet lightning that coursed through the valley like a living dragon. Every surge of energy cracked through the air, sending waves of light bursting across the surface of the river. It was not water that flowed there, but lightning itself, endless, roaring, and alive. The sight made Ling Han's expression shift. Though he had cultivated the body of lightning and was no stranger to bathing within thunder, this river stirred a deep warning within his soul. The lightning here was different. It was not the gentle, natural thunder he could safely absorb. Within the blazing current, faint patterns pulsed and twisted like veins beneath the surface. Those were not lightning patterns. They were flame veins. Ling Han narrowed his eyes. A river of lightning, containing traces of fire? The contradiction alone was enough to make any cultivator hesitate. Meanwhile, beside him, Hunyu's eyes sparkled with excitement as though she had discovered the world's most wonderful playground. Bath time! Bath time! The little girl shouted happily as she sprinted toward the lightning river. Stop! Ling Han grabbed her just in time and pulled her back. This lightning isn't ordinary, he warned seriously. The violent energy crashing through the river was powerful enough to threaten even him. If martial intent was mixed within the lightning, then attempting to absorb it recklessly would result in catastrophic backlash. Cultivators who practiced similar elemental techniques could not simply absorb one another's attacks. Martial intent would clash violently. Yet Hunyu simply blinked at him innocently, completely unconcerned. Ling Han shifted his gaze upstream. The purple mist that shrouded the valley thinned slightly, the further the river stretched into the distance. Visibility improved just enough for him to realize that the lightning river continued far into the misty depths. What lay at its source? A lightning pool? Or perhaps a legendary heavenly treasure? Before Ling Han could ponder further, a dramatic groan sounded beside him. The rabbit suddenly clutched its stomach and rolled on the ground. Ayo! My stomach! I ate too many carrots! Uncle Rabbit must retreat immediately. Ling Han burst out laughing. So now you're afraid of dying? He teased calmly. Fine, leave if you want, but from now on, you're not allowed to steal the carrots inside my black tower. The rabbit instantly froze. Brat, that's too stingy. It straightened up with a righteous expression. Who says Uncle Rabbit is afraid of death? I simply worry that the three of you might fall into danger. If that happens, someone must remain outside to seek reinforcements. Ling Han smirked. Your shamelessness is truly admirable. I might have to learn from you someday. Before the rabbit could continue arguing, Hunyu suddenly lunged forward and bit down on its arm. Ah! The rabbit screamed miserably. Moments later, it obediently followed them along the riverbank. If Uncle Rabbit must work this hard, it grumbled, extending its paw, then hurry and give me a dragon blood tyrant ginseng. At least let me die a satisfied rabbit. Get lost, Ling Han replied without hesitation. I already gave you the 2 I owed you. Don't try to scam more. The rabbit sighed dramatically. One lifetime as brothers, yet you treat Uncle Rabbit like this. Despite their constant bickering, none of them truly relaxed their guard. The joking only served to ease the tension surrounding the mysterious lightning river. Only Hunyu remained carefree, humming a cheerful tune as she skipped along. The deeper they traveled upstream, the more terrifying the lightning grew. The river itself appeared calm, but every splash of lightning that erupted from its surface carried a destructive force comparable to a shattering, void tier attack. The air trembled violently with each surge of power. Ling Han did not dare approach too closely. Even though the lightning did not actively strike them, its overwhelming aura alone was enough to shake the heavens. The rabbit finally snapped. I refuse. Uncle Rabbit is not walking another step. It begged desperately to enter the Black Tower. After thinking briefly, Ling Han nodded. He stored both the rabbit and the gold-seeking rat inside the tower, leaving only himself and Hunyu outside. Hunyu, as always, remained unaffected by the terrifying environment. Even Ling Han's skin began to crack under the pressure of the lightning aura. Yet the little girl skipped along without the slightest discomfort. Ling Han's current physique was comparable to 9th-tier rare metal. His body could withstand even the aura of shattering void elites. Yet Hunyu showed no reaction whatsoever. Just how monstrous was this girl? At that moment, Ling Han finally understood something he had never truly grasped before: the gap between Heaven Tier and Shattering Void Tier. He had seen Shattering Void elites before, but always from afar or when their aura was suppressed. Now, standing near the raw power of lightning comparable to that realm, the truth became clear. Heaven Tier experts were fragile. It was no wonder hundreds of Heaven Tier warriors were required to slay a single Shattering Void elite, and deity transformation cultivators would not even survive standing before one. Shattering Void was a fundamental transformation. Ling Han silently circulated his origin power, forming a protective barrier around himself. If only he still possessed the Thunder Battle armor, he thought regretfully. That treasure would have been perfect here. Suddenly, Hu Niu pointed ahead excitedly. Ling Han, look! There's a flower! Ling Han squinted into the mist but saw nothing at first. However, he trusted Hu Niu's instincts. They continued forward. Soon enough, a strange plant appeared beside the lightning river. It stood roughly half a man's height, its entire body dark blue. Only 7 arrow-shaped leaves grew along its stem. At its peak bloomed a single flower, but that flower was made entirely of lightning. It constantly shifted in shape, like a miniature storm playing out the cycle of blooming and withering in an endless loop. Even Ling Han, the former Alchemy Emperor who had studied countless medicinal herbs in his previous life, could not recognize it. Hu Niu's eyes sparkled. Pretty, pretty! She released Ling Han's hand and dashed toward the flower. Ling Han nearly called out to stop her, but then hesitated. Hu Niu possessed an uncanny instinct for danger. And sure enough, when she reached the riverbank, the terrifying lightning energy didn't harm her at all. With a cheerful laugh, she plucked the flower and skipped back. Ling Han, help Niu put it in her hair. Ling Han took the flower from her hands. The moment he examined it closely, his eyes widened slightly. Within the flower flowed pure lightning essence. Pure. Without martial intent, that meant it could be refined. The endless lightning river carried destructive power beyond imagination, yet somehow a fragment of that power had been extracted and refined by the heavens themselves, forming this miraculous flower. After countless cycles of cleansing by the forces of heaven and earth, the lightning had become completely pure. For cultivators who practiced lightning arts, it was a priceless treasure. Ling Han smiled. This lightning flower is extremely valuable. It can strengthen your body of lightning. You should absorb it. Hu Niu tilted her head and shook it. Niu feels like it wouldn't work even if she ate it. Then she grinned brightly. Ling Han should eat it. Before he could protest, the little girl leaped onto his back and tried to shove the flower into his mouth. Ling Han sighed helplessly. If he refused, Hu Niu would likely nag him for days. In the end, he swallowed the flower. Immediately, he circulated the Thunderclap Ninth Heaven technique, rapidly refining the lightning essence. Time passed. Half an hour later, Ling Han slowly opened his eyes. Lightning flashed across his pupils like twin bolts tearing through the darkness. Though a single lightning flower was not enough to elevate his body of lightning from beginner to master level, if there were several hundred more, he could complete the transformation in one leap. Ling Han turned his gaze back toward the lightning river. Were there more lightning flowers growing along its banks?